the heart-touching and incredible story of Hajar. In the middle of nothing, a woman stood. In her arms was a baby. Her lips were cracked. Her eyes were full of tears, but her gaze was strong. Sometimes destiny begins with a mother's tears. Sometimes the birth of faith begins with a baby's cry. And sometimes a miracle grows where nothing exists. This is not only the story of a mother. This is the story of surrender, patience, and endless trust in Allah. This is the story of the Kaaba, the story of the family line of our Prophet, the story of Hajar. We will tell how a single drop of water turned into a whole Ummah. You are watching Religion Time Official, so this video can reach others like you. If you are ready, let's begin. There are different historical reports about the family and past of Hajar. Some historians say she came from a noble family, while others say she was a servant in the palace of the king of Egypt. At that time, Egypt was a great and very advanced civilization, and the pharaoh's palace was home to countless servants and maids. In ancient Egyptian society, slaves and servants, especially those who served in the palace, had a different and sacred place throughout history. Hajar was a woman who held a very special place in the Quran. She was not a prophet, but she was pure. Usually, when you look at the stories of prophets, you see that they, or those who believed in them, were rejected, and often they fell into the hands of oppressors and suffered. For example, Yusuf alayhi salam was the most beloved son of his father, yet he was thrown into slavery and prison. Most of the time, prophets were left at the mercy of others. The story of Hajar, however, is very different. She was, on the contrary, left in the care of a prophet and his wife, but thrown into a whirlpool of uncertainties and had to find her own way. Her story is one from which we can take lessons of faith and certainty in times of deep uncertainty. In the end, we see that there is not a single day in the year when Hajar is not remembered and honored. A woman who could have died forgotten and rejected has become one of the most honored women in history. People constantly remember her patience and her worship. The Prophet ﷺ said, "To Allah once more." This time, his trembling became stronger. After the third time, the Pharaoh called his soldiers and said, "This woman is not an ordinary woman." Then he ordered, "Give her gifts, and also give her a maid. Take her away from here, and leave me in peace." The Pharaoh now understood that Sarah was not just any woman, but a righteous servant of Allah under his protection. At that time, kings would give gifts to their special guests. The giving of Hajar as a servant to Sarah was part of this tradition. Perhaps the Pharaoh thought that by letting her stay with these righteous people, he might gain blessing. That maid was Hajar. In fact, her name was not originally Hajar. The word Hajar means gift, reward, or offering. Sarah smiled and said, "Allah protected me from the oppressor and gave me Hajar as a gift. Sarah took Hajar with her and returned to Prophet Ibrahim. In this way, Hajar, who once lived in the Pharaoh's palace, became part of the sacred household of Prophet Ibrahim. At first, Hajar was not a believer. This is not the story of a prophet taking a slave, but the story of a servant from Pharaoh's palace. Hajar did not need to know who Ibrahim was at that time. In her eyes, Sarah truly seemed like someone special, just as Pharaoh had thought. While traveling with Ibrahim and Sarah, Hajar witnessed their faith and their devotion to Allah. This woman from the Egyptian palace stepped into a new life, where her character and virtues gained higher value, and with her own will, she believed. Just as Sarah was firm in her faith, Hajar was also firm in hers.
Hajar, her patience and her surrender, and we honor her great descendant, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the same way, in his prayer, Ibrahim alayhi salam also said, "My Lord, provide them with fruits," meaning not only faith and salah, but also sustenance. And Allah granted them provision. A few days later, the food and water that Hajar had were completely finished. Ismail alayhi salam was very thirsty and began to cry. Hajar, afraid that her son would die of thirst, became desperate. She started searching for help, running between the hills of Safa and Marwa, hoping to find a caravan or a source of water. She climbed Safa Hill and looked around, but saw nothing. Then she went down and climbed Marwa Hill. Again, she found nothing. She repeated this 7 times, running in despair for water. On the 7th round, when she was completely exhausted, she returned to baby Ismail. He saw
to the story. Hajar raised her son Ismail among the people of the Jurhum tribe. She and Ismail learned the Arabic language and their culture. When Prophet Ibrahim came later to visit his wife and son, he found that the once empty valley had become full of life, and this made him very happy. Ismail had grown up with the children of Jurhum and had learned archery from them. When he reached the age of strength, he became skilled at shooting arrows and never missed his target. One day in Mecca, Prophet Ibrahim saw a dream. In his dream, he was sacrificing his son Ismail for Allah. At first, he doubted the meaning of this dream, but when he saw the same dream on the following nights, he understood that it was truly a command from Allah. The dreams of prophets are a kind of revelation. About this, our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "The eyes of prophets sleep, but their hearts do not sleep." Allah was testing Prophet Ibrahim with a very heavy trial. Ibrahim told his son to take rope and a knife, saying that they would go up the mountain to collect wood. They often went together to the mountains to bring back wood. Ibrahim took the rope, axe, and knife, and they set out together. The friends of Eid al-Adha are the same takbirs that began in the heavens with Jibreel and were completed on earth by the Father and Son at the peak of their submission. The Tashriq takbirs are the most meaningful legacy passed down to us from Prophet Ibrahim, the father of prophets. Allah said, "O Ibrahim, you have fulfilled the vision. Surely
we reward those who do good. This event became the foundation of Eid al-Adha. Muslims all around the world sacrifice animals to remember the submission of Ibrahim and Ismail alayhim as-salam to Allah after passing this important test. One day, Prophet Ibrahim visited his son Ismail again. The hadiths describe it like this. When Ismail had married, Prophet Ibrahim came to see him, but Ismail was not at home. Ibrahim asked his wife, "Where is your husband?" She replied, "He went out to provide for our living." Then Ibrahim asked her, "How is your life? How are you living?" The wife of Prophet Ismail answered, "We are in severe hardship and great difficulty." Ibrahim said, "When your husband returns, give him my salam and tell him to change the threshold of his door." When Ismail came home, he sensed from the sweet fragrance inside that his father had visited. He asked his wife, "Did anyone come to our home?" She replied, "Yes, an old man with such and such description came. He asked about you. I told him you were away. He asked about our condition, and I said we are in severe hardship." Ismail asked, "Did he leave you any advice?" She said, "Yes. He told me to give you salam and said change the threshold of your door." Ismail understood the meaning and said to his wife, "That old man was my father. He has ordered me to separate from you. Return to your family's home." And she left. Later, Ismail married another woman from the Jurham tribe. After some time, Prophet
his son and wept. Today, when pilgrims perform sa'i, running between Safa and Marwa, they remember the great sacrifice and devotion of Hajar for her son Ismail. Today, millions walk in her footsteps, running between Safa and Marwa, drinking from Zamzam. Every sigh, every sip, every step declares, Allah does not abandon. He never abandons. Hajar passed away, but her story lives on. The story of a mother, a woman, a servant of Allah. The story of faith, patience, and surrender. And the desert, that empty desert, has become the heart of the world. The sacred land to which millions turn, where prayers rise and tears fall. Prophet Ibrahim returned to Palestine, leaving his son Ismail in Mecca. Ismail lived there until the end of his life, leading the people in Hajj and teaching them the commands of Allah. Allah made Ismail a prophet in this land and gave him responsibility for the Kaaba and the rites of Hajj. Allah commanded him to keep the Kaaba pure